just for fun, I'd like to go through the most important week in all of human history, past, present, and future. Yes, Passion Week, as it's called, the Passion of the Lord. I'm not saying I have it all right, because it takes learning and learning more, and we put the information together. But here's what I've got for today. 30 AD, in the year from creation, 3,790, in a Jubilee year. It's Erev Shabbat, up on the Mount of Olives in Bethany, at Simon the leper's house. This is the weekly Shabbat, so it would be a Friday evening. He had invited the disciples of Jesus, Jesus himself, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, and whoever else. And remember, during that evening, that's when Mary anointed the Lord and really anointed him for his burial. The disciples were there, including Judas. How do I know? Because Simon is Judas's father. Interesting. Shabbat dinner on a regular Shabbat, weekly Shabbat on Friday night. And maybe then on Sunday would be his triumphal entry. He would come down the Mount of Olives on the donkey, entering in Jerusalem through the eastern gate, making his way to the temple. And everyone cried, Hosanna, Hosanna, Hoshiana, save us now. Wow, save us now. Amazing. Okay, so as he came into the city then on the donkey, he also went into the temple, and he predicted the fall of that very temple, which did happen in 40 years after. He also predicted the events of his return, his second coming, in another year of Jubilee. So there's a double meaning there. And we learn these things from Matthew 24, Luke 21, and Mark 13. The Lord was explaining to them they were going to lose what they had. And remember, before he came down that mountain, he cried over the city, "Oh, Jerusalem." He knew these bad things were going to happen. So the siege of Jerusalem happened, and his return. And prior to that, there'll be another siege of Jerusalem and another temple that will fall. All that week of Passion, he's explaining this to the people. And then on Tuesday, the Passover Seder for the Passover celebration would have taken place. A busy week for people. So that night, what did he do? He washed their feet, teaching them how they should be. He instituted communion, telling us that this Passover elements we are to remember until he returns. His precious body, his precious blood, sacrificed. Wow. He also talked to them and showed them and taught them on the new covenant, which is still not fulfilled, not even in our time. All that on Tuesday night. Then he would have been arrested, right? Spent all night being tortured, really, being abused, being ridiculed, and whatever else. And in the morning then taken out and taken to the cross, which was really a tree. And there he died at 3 p.m. And the reason he died then and had to get down off the cross, it was what? Preparation day for the High Shabbat. Not the Seder for Passover, but the High Shabbat for Passover. So that night, began that high Shabbat, it also began the first day of unleavened bread. The festival called unleavened bread. So he would have been in the grave then Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, and at Friday at night begins the weekly Shabbat. We started this week out with the Shabbat at Mount of Olives. This is a weekly Shabbat now. And it's time for another meal. And it's time then for the time to change. The evening at sundown would change, and then Saturday begins at sundown on Friday. So any time between that time and early Sunday morning, or actually late Saturday night, he could have been raised from the dead. Did I say that right? Okay. From Saturday night at sundown on through the night, anytime during that period, he could have been raised from the dead, because he was there in the morning out of the grave when the girls came to the tomb. And on that day, it was called the Feast of First Fruits. He fulfilled, by his death, burial, and resurrection, the spring feasts: Passover, unleavened bread, and first fruits. All of them exactly on the days. Wow. And then when the girls came, it would have been Sunday morning. And that's where we get the first day of the week. Another week is beginning. So from Shabbat, one Shabbat until the following Shabbat, this whole week long, wonderful, amazing, sorrowful, glorious events took place. All on holy days prescribed by the Lord. All within the feast called Passover. God bless you all.